Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's Keshwani, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for SAT. We have been solving SAT grammar questions out of this book here, the official SAT study guide. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. The problems that we are about to solve are the ones that you will find on page number 600. Please turn to it, page 600, and today is our lesson number 17. There are 11 questions of this particular type. The first 5 on the previous page we did yesterday. Those were the easy questions on a scale of 1 through 11. The ones that we are about to do in the first column, they are medium questions, and the ones that you find in the second column, 9, 10, and 11, are hard ones. Let's see what we can do. Number 6, it's a medium question. Let's see what we can do. It says, the main reasons the student gave for failing to participate in the political process, and then they go on to say is. Very first thing we should look for is the very first item that you see on the list here, which is the subject-verb agreement. Ask yourself, what is the subject of the sentence? And then ask yourself, does the verb form agree with the subject? Here, the subject of the sentence is reasons. Reasons, plural. And now, the verb appears here, which means you should ignore everything in between. Everything that you see in between is just there to fill up space. It is just there to fill up space. It is just there to distract us. Ignore it, pay no attention to it. And now it reads, the main reasons is. Obviously we need plural. Main reasons are. We need the plural form of the verb. The main reasons are. That's the first thing that is wrong with it. Let's see what we can do now. B, C, D, and E. So whatever the correct answer is has to start with R, which means B might stay, B might stay, C might stay, D is going to go, and E would have to stay. Now, because we were not able to just pick one answer choice, we're not that lucky, so we have to read the rest now. The main reasons are that they have demanding assignment and what? And work at jobs. It should say jobs actually. And work at jobs. Who works at job? The students, they. And they work at job. The main reasons are that they work at that they have demanding assignments and they work at jobs. Let's see what we can do now. B says are demanding assignment and they work at job. Are demanding assignment and they work. The main reasons are no. We have to have this part. Main reasons are that they have demanding assignment. That they have demanding assignment. B doesn't say that. C says the main reasons are that they have demanding assignment and they work at jobs. There you go. This is exactly what we put down here. And E says a demanding assignment in addition to working at. That's not it. The answer is C. C is the one that comes closest to it. It is at that point that we will lift our hand after having made the corrections. Do not look at the answer choice ahead of time. Have the answer choice covered with one hand. Make the corrections as you think it should say. Once the sentence is fixed, then we lift our hand and pick the one that comes closest to it. The one that comes closest is C. Here, in fact, it doesn't come closest to it. It is exactly the way it is, the way we wrote it. But in most cases, what you write down when your answers are covered and the way you will fix it, it's not going to be the exact same thing as you find in the right answer, but it's going to be enough for us to recognize the right answer because we're just looking for something that comes closest to it. Number 7. Archaeologists say that the village which is 7,500 feet above sea level and 400 feet above the valley floor is the oldest continuously inhabited spot in the US. Above the valley floor is the oldest continuously inhabited spot in the US. How does one fix this sentence? The answer is, one does not. It's a beautifully written sentence. There is absolutely nothing wrong with it. There are no grammatical errors in it. It says the village, which is 7,500 feet above the sea level and 400 feet above the valley floor, is the oldest spot. It's fine the way it is. The answer is A. It doesn't require any fixing. It is fine the way it is. Let's go on to 8. When it is fine, don't fuss about it. Don't waste your time reading all the other answer choices. Once you have made the determination, see, the reason why we are so sure is because our answers were covered. We're not looking at the answer choices. Do not look at the answer choices. Just read the sentence yourself and try to fix it. And because at this point you have an unbiased opinion, because of the fact that at this point, because of the fact that you have covered the answer choices, your thinking process, your thoughts are not polluted by the garbage that they're giving you. Since your thinking process is unbiased, and if your unbiased opinion at that point tells you that there is nothing wrong with it, then there is nothing wrong with it. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to be right 100% of the time. It all depends on your ability, obviously. Once in a while you're going to get burned. But it will work most of the time. On the other hand, if you start reading every single answer choice, it gets to be too much, it gets to be too unknowing. Number 8. Returning to Dayville after 10 years. Returning to Dayville after 10 years. The small town seemed much livelier to Margot the whole thing actually, this entire part up until now, up until this point is underlined, and then they go on to say, then it had been when she was growing up there. We are not interested in that part. The part that we are interested in is the underlined portion, and our job is to see if we can improve this thing. The way it's written is a little bit awkward. Returning to Dayville after 10 years, the small town seemed much livelier to Margot. How about Margot found the small town to be much livelier when she returned after 10 years. Let's see what we can do. I think this is a little bit more direct. Margot found the town to be livelier when she returned after 10 years. Let's see what we can do. There is no point in reading A, because A simply repeats what was given to us. We already said that this is a little bit awkward, so we're not going to look at A. Having returned to Dayville after 10 years, it seemed a much livelier town to Margot. No, B is very awkward. C says, after Margot returned, there you go. Margot found the Dayville to be much livelier when she returned. No? After Margot returned to Dayville in 10 years, the small town seems much livelier. No, I don't like it. Margot returned to Dayville after 10 years, the small town seemingly much livelier. The small town was seemingly much livelier. I don't think so. The last one says, when Margot returned, we don't have the word when Margot, we said Margot found the small town to be much livelier when, also they have the word when in the beginning. When Margot returned to Dayville after 10 years, the small town seemed much livelier to her. Margot found the small town to be much livelier when she returned after 10 years. I think that's the one that comes closest to it. We're going to go with E. All the rest were a little awkward. I'm going to read answer choice E one more time. When Margot returned to Dayville after 10 years, Margot found the small town to be much livelier. You see, we have the same idea in a different order. Margot found the small tower being much livelier when she returned after 10 years. What they're saying is that when she returned after 10, what they're saying is that when Margot found, when Margot returned after 10 years, they have the same idea in reverse order, but it's the same idea, same notion, same way of writing this thing. It's just a matter of structure. The answer is E. Number 9. Having compared to having command of pathos, tragedy, as well as humor, George Eliot is considered to be a great English novelist. George Eliot, by the way, for those of you who do not know, is actually a female. She used a male pen name because in those days when she was writing in the 19th century, she thought that she will be taken more seriously if people thought that it was a guy who was writing the things, the novels. So that's why she assumed a pen name, a male pen name, George Eliot. I do not know her real name. I think it's Mary something, Mary Evans, I believe. Anyway, so having command of, what are pathos, by the way? Pathos are feelings of sympathy, feelings of sorrows, feelings of it arouses feelings in you of feeling sorrow for something, feeling sympathy for something, and so forth. We have not learned this word in our vocabulary words, but I will make a note, and one day we'll learn this word. So what can we do with this here? Having command of pathos, tragedies, as well as humor, she is considered to be a great English novelist. Let's not start with having. How about because of her command of pathos, tragedies, as well as humor, George Eliot is considered to be, there you go, I think that would work. We're looking for something that should start with because of the fact that she has these qualities. Because of the fact that she has these qualities, she's considered to be one of the great English novelists. Works fine. Works beautifully. Let's look at it. So it has to, correct answer, whatever it is, has to start with because. Now, at this point, your answer should have been covered. Now we lift our hand and find the one answer choice that's going to come closest to what we're looking for. Let's look at it. B does not start with the word because. Neither does C, D, E. Only E is the only one that does. It's because of her command of pathos. Oh, there you go. Because of her command of pathos, she's considered tragedies and humor. That is because of her, as we put it, because of her command of these qualities, she's considered to be one of the greatest novelists of the English literature. Or she's considered to be a great English novelist. There you go. The answer is E. Number 10. The penultimate one, second to the last one. Number 10. Richard Wright moved many times in his life. Richard moved many times in his life. And then they go on to say, moving from south. First he went to the north. eventually to France from US. And all of this is underlined. Let's see what we can do. Do not look at the answer choices. If you look at the answer choices, as I always give you the pep talk, if you start reading all the answer choices, these problems get to be very tedious, very laborious, very time consuming. Do not look at the answer choices. Have the pencil in one hand, keep the answer choices covered, and let's see what we can do here. So it goes on to say that he moved many times in his life. Let's see what we can do here. And ask yourself, being a native speaker of the language, it should be much easier for you than it is for me. If I can do it, you can do it. Just keep the answers covered and just ask yourself, how would you fix it? How would you make it flow a little bit better, a little bit smoother? He moved many times in his life. Forget about moving from. The word moving has to go. He moved many times in his life from south. First he went, has to go. He moved many times in his life from south to the north. So far it says he moved many times in his life from south to the north and then eventually to France from the US. That's it, we're done. In other words, what we have done is we have gotten rid of these words. I'm going to erase them so you can see clearly what we have done. That's it. All we have done is get rid of these words. So it says he moved many times in his life from south to the north, and then eventually to France from the US. Now we are ready to look at the answer choices. Let's do that then. Lift your hand. Let's go through one by one. B says the first move he made. That's not what we said. What we're saying is that he moved many times in his life from the south to the north. I'm looking for something that says from the south to the north. Straightforward, simple, direct. That's not what B says. C says first from the south to the north. Okay, that comes close. Moving first from the south, he came to the north. That's not what we said. First from the south, he moved to the north and ended up in France after leaving the US. No, E is even more verbose. So let's back to C. Let's see what C says, just to make sure. First from the south to the north, and eventually from the US to France. Eventually to France from the US is the same thing. The answer is C. The answer is C. That's the one that comes closest to it. Last one, number 11. Last one is last one for a reason. It is nasty. Though heavily dependent on the government for business, it is a tough sentence to understand. It is a tough sentence to analyze. Do not look at the answer choices. You must understand the sentence before you lift your hand and before you start looking at the answer choices. Otherwise you will be confused. I guarantee you. Your chances of finding the right answer without actually first understanding the sentence are very slim. Though heavily dependent on the government for business and information, though heavily dependent on the government for business and information, while university supply the Space Research Center with talent as a corporation, it remains independent of both though heavily dependent on the government for business and information. So all of this, starting from here up to here, is underlined, which is why I took the time to write down the entire thing. Now I'm going to put it down. We're not going to look at the answer choices. We're just going to ask ourselves first of all what the hell it is that they're trying to say here, and secondly, if it needs improving, and if it does, how are we going to go about it. Let's first understand the sentence. What is the sentence about? What are we talking about here? Who is dependent on the government for business and information? Who is dependent on the talents from the university? What is the subject of the sentence? The subject of the sentence is the very first thing we need to worry about, is the very first thing we need to locate. In other words, what are they talking about? What they're talking about here is the Space Research Center. And what they're trying to say here is that we have this space center which is dependent on two entities. It is dependent on the government and it is dependent on the universities. Why is it dependent on the government? Well, it's dependent on the government for two reasons. It says, though heavily dependent on the government for business and information, apparently government is the one that provides us the business. That's where they get their business, and that's where they get the necessary information that they need in order for them to do their job, because it is, after all, a space research center. Not too many people want to hire space research centers. There aren't too many people who would like to send a satellite. Mostly it's the government, and they are the one who also provided the information. I'm making too much fuss of it. Let's keep going. At the same time, while the universities supply the space research centers with talent. So where do they hire their talents? Where do they hire their scientists from? They come from the university. So let's see what we can do here. Though heavily dependent on the government for business. So business, this part we cannot do anything here because it's not underlined. And information, this is the end. This is the end of the first idea. While the university has supplied the space research centers with talent. No, this is the problem area. Right here is the problem area. We need to work on this thing. While universities supply the space research center with the talent, this part is okay. As a corporation, it remains independent of both. That part is fine. Though heavily dependent on the government for business and information, how about that? And let's continue here. And on the universities for the talent. As a corporation, the rest will be fine. As a corporation, the rest of the sentence here. As a corporation, it remains independent of both. So now the sentence reads like this. So this is going, while universities supply, instead of saying while universities supply, now it reads like this. Though heavily dependent on the government for business and information, and, so this is the first part, and on the university for the talent, it remains, as a corporation, it remains independent of both. In other words, it does not take orders from the government, it does not take orders from the university, even though it does depend on the universities provided with the talent, it provided with the scientists that it needs to do its business, and even though it depends on the government for the business and information, it is, as a corporation, independent of both. That's what it is. Again, one more time, it has three parts to it. Though heavily dependent on the government for business and information, and on the universities for the talent, as a corporation, it remains independent of both. Let's see what we can do. B says, information and on talent by the university. We did not say on talent by the university. We said and on the university for the talent. It depends, again, it is dependent on the government for business and information, and there we go, and on the universities for the talent. There you go, and on the universities for the talent. There you go. That's our answer choice. That's our answer choice C, rather. That's our answer choice C. Let's see what D says. The space research is a corporation independent of both. Let's see what C says. University supply the space center with talent. It is a corporation. No, it doesn't. C doesn't work, and neither does D. D doesn't work, and neither does E. E says university supply the space research center with talent while it no. The answer is C. The one that comes closest to what we put down is C. And that's the end of it. as I said, it's a nasty one when you get to the second column of these questions. That's why I always remind you to be aware at all time as to how many questions you have of a given type. Here we have 11 of these types. So as we get closer to 11, we should not be surprised to find that we're getting into a very nasty area. Number 11 is number 11 on a scale of 1 through 11. And so is 9 and 10. So when you get in the second column, slow down a little bit. Take your time. Do you understand? I will see you tomorrow where we'll begin the new type of questions beginning on page 601. And there are 18 of those, which means the first 6 are going to be easy. The problems that you see on the first page, 601, those are all easy. As you turn to the page, 602, the first column is going to be medium and the second column is going to be hard. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Bye now.